In the center of the convoy was two old black Lincolns, and we knew who we were going to ride a nose. And then in front of the Lincolns were some old Japanese open trucks, and they all looked like they came right out of a junkyard. They were horrible looking. So, but we finally got onto them and we got started, and we were heading for Yokohama, which was about 18 miles away. And as we left the airport, we could see Japanese planes underneath the trees, camouflaged, and they were all too underneath that area. And when we'd come upon a crossing of a road, there was a Japanese soldier with his back to us. This is one of them right here. And as we came into Yokohama, there were many people lining the streets, young and old, to see us. Right here. They were pitiful looking. They all looked just like they had lost their world. And it was a very memorable sight. We got to the new Grand Hotel in Yokohama, which was on the Tokyo Bay, faced Tokyo Bay. There was just a road and a row of trees between the front of the hotel and Tokyo Bay. After we arrived there, some of the guard members immediately took up positions around the hotel, inside the hotel, and the rest of us went into a large building adjacent to it, which was owned by Sun Oil Company. We were just getting settled in and thinking of finding a spot to sleep and opening up some of our packaged food. And when the commander of the guard came in and said, "You're needed out in front of the hotel for a photo op." Well, we were kind of grumbling, and he said, these people are from all over the world, and your picture will probably be all over the world in the paper. So that kind of perked us up a little bit. We got out in front. We had to have a rifle and our helmet, and some of the men didn't have their helmets fastened tight enough, and they were tipped. Some didn't have all the buttons on their shirt, and those reporters got on us, and they went through, and we were like inspection. They had, everything had to be just perfect. And then we had different stances. We had parade rest, we had port arms, we had salute with the rifle, and it seemed like it would never end, but it did. So the 2 days later, this was September the 1st, I was assigned to guard the main entrance to the hotel. My guard duty time was from 7 until 9. And my orders were, no one shall be allowed to enter the hotel until 8 o'clock. Well, things were very quiet, a little boring. And 7:45, a big black Cadillac drove up in front of the hotel, and the driver came out very fast, opened the back door, and he bowed down. And I thought, well, what do we have here? It must be someone kind of important. So the man got out, and I could see he had a uniform on, a lot of braiding on his shoulder, braiding on his cap. Great big long samurai sword almost drug on the concrete as he walked towards me. His aide, and driver and aide, I don't know what he was, probably aide and a driver both, walked to his left, one step behind him. So he came up to me, and I knew he couldn't enter the hotel, so I put my rifle between my legs and I pointed to my watch, and I went like this. Well, he stopped, and he kind of seemed like he knew what I was trying to tell him. And I thought, what am I going to do with this guy? I've got 15 minutes here. So I thought, well, I'll run him around the hotel. So I went like that 2 or 3 times, and finally he got the idea. So he left. They went around the hotel, and there was 3 other guards at each door, and I knew they wouldn't let him in either. So about 5 minutes later, here he came around the edge of the hotel. Oh, he was hot. There was fire in his eyes. His face was blood red. And I held up my hand again for him to stop. Oh, he wasn't about to stop. So I lowered my rifle towards him. Oh, he stopped in a hurry. And he took 1 step back, and we just looked at each other. And I didn't know what to do. And after a couple of minutes, one of the officers inside the hotel saw him. He came out and ushered him in. And as he walked by me, he muttered something real low, and I imagine it was some nasty words or something. I couldn't understand Japanese anyhow. So little did I know at that time, he was the principal signer of the surrender treaty. That's him right here. He was General Yoshiji Amuzu, and he was the top one. This was the man that signed for the civilian people, and he signed for all of the military. Well, he's looking pretty nasty there too, like he's had another bad day somewhere, I guess. So, but he never did come out of the hotel all the time I was guard there. Well, in front of the hotel was a pier that projected out into Tokyo Bay about 200 feet. It was about 14 foot wide. Very nice sized pier. Well, the following morning on September the 2nd, the day of the signing, the honor guards formed a corridor from the edge of the road to the end of the pier, and General MacArthur and his top generals, I don't happen to have a picture of that, we came through this corridor, and we gave them a snappy rifle salute and held that salute till they got on the naval ship that took them out the battleship Missouri. We had tried to get permission to go aboard the battleship Missouri the day ahead, but the Navy denied our request. They didn't want any more Army men or any at all on board the ship. The signing was very short, and it's in a little small part of the ship right here. There's a desk there. These are all Navy men around here. And after the signing of the surrender, it was called the Instrument of Surrender, General MacArthur became the new ruler of Japan. He was the first military ruler of Japan in over 1,000 years. One of the 11th Airborne paratroopers, it wasn't one of our group, took that document, hand-delivered it to President Truman in Washington, D.C. The following day, after the signing of the treaty, General MacArthur and the honor guards moved to a compound of homes high above, on a bluff, high above Tokyo Bay. We had a great view of Tokyo Bay. And in the meantime, before this happened, while we were at the hotel, a lot of vehicles were delivered, and we received 2 Jeeps and 2 large trucks so we could be transported around. We had our own wheels in for change. So we went out to this compound of homes. There were 3 homes there. The guards stayed in the ones on the outside. MacArthur took the center home. It was they looked like Western style homes. His home was a 1-story with a large picture window in the front, no shades, no draperies, and there's one little light in the center of the room. So I was assigned to guard the front of the house every morning, and then at night after he came home from work, he would leave and go into Tokyo for at his office there. So in the morning, and there was a patio out in front of the window or the entrance with a low wall, and my duty was to walk back and forth and be a guard there. Well, every morning at 6:45, he would rise and come out on the patio and stretch, and go through a few motions, I guess, limbering up. And the first morning I saw him, I almost laughed at him. He had a pair of pajamas on that were bright yellow and orange, wide stripes. Oh my God. And I thought, well, he either has a passion for orange and yellow, or else his wife sent those to him. Probably designer pajamas. But anyhow, this occurred every morning, and I just wouldn't look at him. So at night when he would come home, it was usually about 7 o'clock in the evening, and at 9 o'clock sharp, he would start walking around in this living room. And I guess he was either exercising or meditating. 9:30, you could set your watch, the lights would go out, and that was it for the night. So he had a Filipino cook that I could see smoked a lot of cigarettes. And as I passed by the back door, going to guard the front entrance, there was a box of apples and a box of oranges. Oh, they look great. So I thought, well, he doesn't need all those oranges. He doesn't need all those apples. So one morning I gathered up the cigarettes I didn't smoke anyhow, and I handed them to the Filipino cook and pointed towards the apples. So he gave me a whole sack of them. I thought, that's pretty neat, yeah. The thing that really amazed me was when he would leave for work in the morning, there was always 2 old black Cadillacs, and never any guards went with him. And I couldn't understand that. And I'll never understand it, except that he knew the Japanese people and he trusted them better than any of us knew. So after 2.5 weeks there on the guarding the general, why I went back to my old outfit, and they had moved up to Sendai, Japan, which was north of Tokyo, about 200 miles. Up there we were housed in a Japanese military base, and I started pulling guard duty at a brewery, and that wasn't bad. So there was 2 of us would be at the guardhouse, plus a Japanese man, and we'd always check the military, make sure that they paid, and everything was in order, and they weren't cheating the Japanese or making off with beer that they shouldn't be. And that was the intent of guarding facilities around the country like that. So after I was on that for a while, there was a large home there, and they put me on guard there, and inside that home there was some women. And I noticed that there was men coming and going all the time. So I suppose they were probably serving them coffee and donuts in there. Must have been coffee and donuts. I never did know for sure. Anyhow, after the first of the year, I started receiving promotions, and they came very rapidly. So my guard duty days were over with, and then I started placing the men for guard duty. So we were moved to Hokkaido. That's the most northern province of Japan, and we had to cross a body of water of about 40 miles. And this was on a ferry late at night. And the ferry, there was around 3,000 of the 11th Airborne paratroopers were moved up there with the entire 187th Regiment. So we got on this ferry, and there was a lot of Japanese people on it late at night. They had a lot of lights on, and probably 700 or 800 people. It was huge. And we crossed this body of water, and I'm sure that other military had crossed it to finish out the movement of the 187th Regiment. But 10 days later, this ferry went down, and all the people were lost on it as it went down. We don't know how many, or were there any American military or not. There were two large cities up there that we would be assigned to. One was Sapporo, one was Hikkodate. And I happened to be in the group that was assigned to Sapporo. Sapporo is a winter wonderland like Vail, Colorado. A lot of ski slopes. When I'd get my men placed in the morning, I'd always hit the ski slopes. And this particular slope had a ski lift. It was an endless rope that went up about 200 yards, back down to the little machine, and an old Japanese guy had invented this, and it was enclosed, and I couldn't see the gearing or anything, but as the rope went up, it was a wheel up there anchored in the slope, came back down, and there was a knot in the rope about every 20 feet, and that's what you grabbed a hold of to go up that slope. It only pulled about 2 people at a time. It didn't have much power. So worked quite well, and I learned to ski there, and I'd get on those slopes almost every day. Many years later, when I was watching the Olympics in Japan, the sportscaster were talking about the ski slope, and it was on television. They pulled out a picture, and I immediately knew that this was the one, and they said that this was the ski lift, the first one that was ever invented for people. So I was kind of amused by that.